Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and begin with a chant today. This is called Saint Teresa's Admonition. We'll chant and then we'll pray, and then we'll have a brief discussion together. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. Alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let's pray together. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and our beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we lay the flowers of our devotion, the altar of thy peace. Transform our consciousness, that we may live in ever new bliss, that we may permeate thy calmness, and that we may radiate thy light. Change no circumstances in our outer experience. Help us to transform from within. Om. Peace. Amen. Good morning, everyone. Felt right to start with a chant today, just to lift the energy and the spirits. It's a little bit of, at least here in Palo Alto, a little bit of a cloudy morning, and it felt nice to just jump right in with a song and sing to God. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about spiritual alchemy, alchemy is an interesting concept. It's always been something that's a little bit magical and mystical in our world. Though last night when I was speaking with someone about the topic of alchemy, they were telling me about how they'd actually studied the process on a chemical molecular level here in the world, in this material world. And I was just fascinated by this process of what alchemy looks like in our material world, but then also the magic and the mysticism that surrounds this topic of alchemy, which is, of course, transforming, on its most superficial level, transforming solid materials into gold. And what does that really look like for each one of us? And what does that look like for the spiritual seeker? And the reason that the topic came up is because we are in November of 2020, and there is a lot of chaos and a lot of noise that's just happening all around us in our world. We have a global pandemic. We have a polarizing election here in the United States. There are just many things that are happening that are just creating a lot of rajasic energy, a lot of chaotic energy all around us. And how do we stand unshaken, as Paramahansa Yogananda said? How do we stand unshaken amidst the break of crashing worlds, amidst the break of all of this chaos and the collisions that are happening? And I don't mean that on like a catastrophic level, but just the noise and the chaos all around us. And the secret is alchemy. The secret is spiritual alchemy, spiritualizing that process of taking whatever energies and environments exist around us and using our techniques, using pranayama, using the breath to help us transform that energy into gold, that energy into spiritualized energy, spiritualized consciousness, sharing light where there is darkness, sharing joy where there is sadness and pain. This is the process of alchemy on its most superficial level. And when we internalize that spiritually, then we can begin to see the power that it has for each one of us to help to transform our consciousness, and again, bringing us closer and closer to that goal of realizing our oneness with the divine, of realizing our oneness with everything that surrounds us. And it came to me the other day. So when I was a senior in college, I took a course called Compassion, and I had no idea really what I was getting myself into when I took this course. It was kind of just a series of interesting events that led me to ultimately take the course. It was not something that I was immediately drawn to, though now, of course, if I saw a course called Compassion, I would be jumping right into it. And in the midst of this course, we read different exemplars. We read the biography of Mother Teresa, and we read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. We read a biography of the Dalai Lama, of Nelson Mandela, of Gandhi. And we would study each of these different exemplars from an academic standpoint, but then also internalizing their process of sharing light. Though these aren't the words that were used in the midst of that class, we would also internalize that process of what it meant to share light with the world, to share goodness with the world. And as I was reflecting on this course, because it came to me the other day, one of the meditation techniques, so to jump around a little bit, what we would do is we would read a text, study, as I said, from an academic standpoint, that exemplar, and then we would spend a week or two practicing contemplative practices that helped us to immerse ourselves in that experience of sharing the light that exemplar was offering. So we read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and then we practiced a forgiveness meditation and forgiveness healing techniques for the next week or so. And we introspected and wrote about our process with Mother Teresa. We read and studied her from an academic standpoint, and then flipped that into a contemplative practice of what does it mean to see Christ and to serve Christ in everyone and everything that we're doing. And in the midst of this course, we were introduced to different meditation techniques along the way. And one of the techniques that we learned was a Buddhist meditation technique called Tonglen. And it came to me the other day because there's just a lot of suffering and a lot of pain that we're experiencing and that we're seeing in the world right now. And this practice of Tonglen, though I'm not an expert in it, so if it piques your interest, please find a teacher, find resources that can help you learn it more than just this little 2-minute blurb that I'm going to share with you. But the essence of the practice of Tonglen is to breathe in the pain and the suffering of a person that you are praying for or wanting to help ease suffering for. And so you breathe in that pain and suffering, and you breathe out white healing light. So with each breath, you're just concentrating on offering that energy and that magnetism of divine light and of healing presence into this person, whether it's emotional or physical. It has many of the same echoes of Yogananda's healing techniques and the healing prayers and affirmations that we use on this path of self-realization. And as I was meditating the other morning, it just came to me that any practice of pranayama, particularly the practice of Kriya Yoga, which is what Paramahansa Yogananda teaches, but really any practice of pranayama, any practice of focusing on the breath and drawing the energy up the astral spine through the Sushumna up to the spiritual eye, is a practice of alchemy, is a practice of transforming energy, transforming the rajasic, negative, outward pulling energies of consciousness that exist around us, and spiritualizing them, offering them up and out as white healing light. So everything that we're doing in our daily life can be a practice of alchemy. And as I was thinking about that opportunity that we have, I was reflecting back on these amazing exemplars who, when I was reading about them at 22 years old, it was feeling, it's beautiful that Mother Teresa is all of who she is, or Viktor Frankl is all of who he was, and they were able to rise above these extraordinary circumstances and, in certain cases, extraordinary pain and suffering. Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, Viktor Frankl, all facing extreme oppression and standing up amidst really difficult and trying times. And I realized the other day that each one of them are alchemists. That's what they're doing. And this form of spiritual alchemy that we have, this opportunity to internalize our energy and offer it up into that divine light, whatever vocabulary or language we're using. Here are exemplars from all different paths around the world. And they're practicing the same thing. They're practicing the same opportunity of transforming their energy and their consciousness into light, because that's a responsibility that we have as spiritual seekers, to be aware that there is an option to choose light, and to be aware that there is an option to choose to focus our energy and our attention on the divine. Then we have a responsibility to share that. And not only is it our responsibility, but it's a privilege that we have to get to seek God and to get to practice alchemy on this level. But alchemy doesn't happen outside of us. We're often trying to transform our situations and our circumstances around us and just thinking if we can get it just right, then perhaps everything will fall into place. I was feeling that yesterday. I was having just a little bit of an irksome day, and just or not yesterday, a few days ago, just a kind of, a little pouty, a little sulky, and tamasic is really the way that I was feeling. I just wanted to lay on the couch and watch movies and just have sort of a throwaway day. I didn't want to accomplish anything important that day. I wanted to just relax and be a little bit tamasic. And I found myself at one point saying, no, you can't do this. And so I got online and I started to look at, I have this beautiful painting behind me, which is a screen or a print of a painting by by the spiritual director of Ananda Worldwide, Jyotish, Nine Swami Jyotish. And I got online the other day thinking, or when I was feeling a little irksome, thinking maybe I need to buy more of these paintings because I love that painting. It feels very uplifting to me. And so I got online and I was looking at all of these paintings and saying, well, if I put this painting from Jyotish here and I put this painting from Nayaswami Jyotish there, then maybe my energy will be uplifted and I'll feel a little bit happier. And ultimately, I realized that that wasn't going to work, that if we want to transform ourselves, though we want our outer circumstances and our environment to feel peaceful and beautiful, and we want to be able to look at beautiful and uplifting things, and that helps us in subtle ways, the work actually has to come from within, and the work actually has to be our own. We can't just change the outer circumstances and expect that happiness and that calmness and that peace to come to us. Which is, of course, how we can get alchemy wrong. We think that if we just can get it right, if I can just get the right surroundings, if I can put the right paintings up on my walls, then I'll want to meditate all of the time. Or if I can just get a bigger house and have my own space where I can be quiet, then I'll want to be more spiritually focused and study the teachings and study scriptures more, or whatever it may be. Even if it's not spiritually focused at this moment, just if I could just tweak this one little thing or get that one little thing right, if I could just get this car in the right color, then everything will start to fall into place. And we keep thinking that if we can change what's happening outside, if we can just tweak the outer world just enough, then we'll be able to slip into that place of happiness. Then we'll be able to kind of fit all of the blocks together, and the puzzle pieces will all come into place. And the image will be whole and will feel complete. But of course, what we learn as we practice meditation and as we study any spiritual path that we're following is that the transformation can't happen, and it doesn't happen from the outside. Sister Gyanamata, who was Paramahansa Yogananda's foremost female disciple, she had a prayer that I love and that came to her where she said, Lord, change no circumstance in my life, change me. And this is the process of alchemy. This is what happens when we can move the energy in the world up our spines and offer it with each breath, inhaling and offering that breath out into the divine, offering that breath. And if you think about it, when the breath has to move up the astral spine and it has to move through the chakras, it's inherently going through a process of transformation, because we start with, if we look at the third chakra, which is the element of fire. Fire is inherently transforming. And so it's already working through that process of transformation. And as soon as it goes through that process of transformation, then it comes to the heart where it's purified and our aspirations are uplifted and offered into the divine. So with each breath, as we're focusing on pulling our energy up into that and magnetizing that spiritual eye, magnetizing that point of Christ consciousness that exists in each one of us, magnetizing that place of inner light, of interiorized light, then we are alchemists. We're practicing alchemy. We're taking the energies of the world and we're transforming them and we're offering them up as light. And as to come back to what I said earlier, it's a beautiful responsibility to be aware that that process exists and to be aware of that option that we have to do this, to practice in this way. And a beautiful analogy that so the other day a friend was telling me about, or he was telling a group of us, we were in a class, our series of the art and science of Raja Yoga, and he was telling a story about a young composer that he watched a video of. This is from 2009, and she was debuting at Carnegie Hall. And she comes out and she's young. She can't be more than 15 years old. And this just beautiful, young, poised woman. And she walks out onto the stage and she gives an opening and she talks a little bit about the composition that we are about to hear. And this can be found on YouTube. It's just called Siren Sound Waltz. If you just Google that, it comes up and you can see her. And it's a beautiful story, and it's lovely what she creates. And she talks about how she's describing to us how she begins her composition, her musical composition, and why she begins it this way. And she talks about how classical music used to be about all of the melody and the harmony and the dance of the notes coming together to create something beautiful, but how classical music has progressed to a place where now it's not about being beautiful anymore. And this is because what she says is classical music and music in general is supposed to reflect the ugliness and the chaos of the time. And so recent compositions in what would be considered modern classical music, they sound more like a cacophony of sounds and noise. And I actually started looking it up and listening to it, and that's exactly what it is. It's a cacophony of noise, and it kind of gives you like a tingle up your spine. There's something that just feels a little bit off about it. And it was so interesting the way she worded it, which was that the music that's being written today is supposed to reflect the ugliness and the chaos of the times. And then she very cutely and coyly kind of smiles and says, but I don't believe that. And she goes on to say that she was listening to the siren sounds of Vienna, the sirens as in the ambulance sirens, and just hearing that noise and she tries to find the melody underneath it. And then she eventually does. And she goes on and she creates and composes this beautiful piece that begins with that cacophony of sounds, but then ultimately it's transformed by choosing to find the beauty in the midst of the chaos, the beauty in the midst of that cacophony of noise and the sirens and the horns and all of the things that we can imagine hearing in a big, busy city, that underneath that is that heartbeat of something beautiful, that heartbeat of something that is inspired and that is divine. And so this piece that she writes, it starts out just that way. You hear the sirens and this cacophony of noise, and then suddenly out of the midst of that ugliness and that sort of just chaos of sound, you begin to hear this melody, and the melody gets stronger and it begins to play a little bit more loudly, and suddenly all of that noise and busyness, the chaos, it just fades away, and what we're left with is this beautiful waltz that she has composed. And though she doesn't say this directly, the implication underneath all of what she's saying is that it's the artist's responsibility not to reflect the ugliness of the times and the ugliness of what's happening around us, but to feel and to hear and to identify and ultimately to share the beauty that exists underneath all of that chaos. And it's a perfect analogy for the responsibility and the privilege that we hold as spiritual seekers on any path, because as soon as we are aware, I'm not a musician, I'm not trained as a musician, so I can listen to something and I can say, I like this or I don't like this, but I can't understand why, and I couldn't understand how to navigate and fix it. If I were listening to something and I were singing a little flat, or a note we're out of pitch or things like that, I might identify this sounds a little off to the ear, but I wouldn't know how to fix it. I wouldn't know how to transform it or change it. But as spiritual seekers on a path, when we're practicing meditation and we're studying the teachings of the scriptures, we are given the tools. We know how to navigate our way out of it. So many people, we can just look around at the world and we can see there are a lot of people who can identify right now that the world is out of pitch, right? That there's something a little off. We can hear it and say, I'm not quite sure what's happening here. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of noise, and there's a cacophony of energy happening all around us in this world. And that's natural because the world is created out of duality. As soon as God created or manifested reality, there was duality. And so where there is an energy pulling us up and uplifting us towards God's grace, there is also an equally as strong force that's pulling us out into the world. So that cacophony of energy, that chaos of energy that's buzzing around us everywhere, it's not inherently bad or evil. It simply is. And the question for each one of us is, do I have the tools? And do I know how to transform that energy? Just as this young woman could hear the siren sound and transform that melody, transform those notes into something beautiful, we're given the tools through our pranayama, through the practice of spiritual alchemy. We can take any energy, any sort of base energy, whatever exists in the world, and we have the secret. We know how to transform it into gold because we're offering it up to God. We're offering it up to the divine. And this is such a beautiful opportunity, not just for each one of us individually, but it's an opportunity to help spread light throughout the world, which is why we have this wonderful campaign at Ananda, the Warriors of Light, right? What does it mean to be a warrior of light? To share light with the world, to share joy, to share calmness, and to be an example of that. Because it's so easy to find ourselves getting stuck in the chaos, and it's so easy to get hooked on all of the ways that we want to change the world from the outside in. But spiritual alchemy is ultimately about changing ourselves from the inside out. And spiritual alchemy is, of course, the essence of self-realization. It's the essence of the spiritual path in general. And it's the essence of any spiritual path when a true seeker is trying to merge back into oneness with the divine. The essence of yoga is spiritual alchemy. The essence of yoga is turning the energies of the world into energies that are directed toward the divine, that are divinely inspired, that are in and of themselves golden in light. I was thinking, how can I come all the way back to gold? But that's the essence of it. When we are holding our energy at the point between the eyebrows, at that point of inner light that resonates within each one of us, then we are practicing alchemy. And whether we're Viktor Frankl or Nelson Mandela in these harrowing situations, and we're able to find the strength and the energy to offer that light to God, or whether we're sitting in traffic and instead of getting more and more frustrated and angry at the traffic around us, we just look to the person next to us and we begin to pray for them, and we just try and share light with that person, whomever they may be, whether we know them or not. Whether it's choosing when you're having a tamasic day and you just want to be lazy, maybe we can't get ourselves all the way to the meditation pillow in front of the altar, but we can say, I can shift my energy here. I can go for a run right now. I can avoid these downward pulling tamasic things. Instead of watching a movie, I'm going to go for a walk, garden, plant flowers in my garden, whatever it may be, play with my puppy, play with my children, take my dog for a walk, whatever we can do to just remember that there is light in every situation and in every circumstance, and that we get to share that light. The more that we focus inside, the more that we search for that light within and permeate that light out from our hearts, from our spiritual eye, and broadcast that love into the world, then we are helping to transform moment by moment, second by second, really atom by atom, everything that is around us. Think about who Yogananda was, this great avatar and this great master in the world, and all of the great masters that we see in the world. And then they moved through the world. Goodness just surrounded them. The light that permeated from their aura, from their presence. You know, we hear all the stories about jungle beasts and tigers just laying tame at their feet, or villainous people in the world, or people who are out to do no good, having no inclination to do evil or to do bad things in the world whenever they were in the presence of great masters. And what is that? That light, that aura that's being permeated, that's the essence of alchemy. Because when we become alchemists, not only do we ourselves feel untouched by the break of crashing worlds, untouched by the chaos and the cacophony of energy that exists around us, but we also share that aura out into the world. We share that light and that energy out into the world, and other people are able to be affected by it as well. So the true state of alchemy doesn't just serve us individually on our path home to God, it serves the world. God bless you.